Have you ever had a dream that seems so real, so lucid, that it seems more real than your everyday life? What if you could direct such a dream so that its outcome can be wonderful and bring you benefits in your everyday life? That's the subject of tonight's Dazzle Unlimited. In tonight's show, part one of a two-part interview with Robert Waggoner, author of the book Lucid Dreaming. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Dazzle Unlimited. I'm Steve Steinberg, as I hope you know by now, and I have a very special guest with me here this evening, Robert Waggoner, the author of Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. Robert Waggoner, welcome to Dazzle Unlimited.
Oh, thanks, Stephen. It's great to be here.
We are doing tonight's interview as I speak. It's May 15th, 2012, here in Stockholm, at a beautiful historic hotel in the center of Stockholm called Anno 1647. So that's just a place to keep in mind. If you ever come to Stockholm, check this hotel out. It's something special. So, lucid dreaming. What is lucid dreaming? Well, there are a number of definitions. Here's a good one. Consciously perceiving and recognizing that one is in a dream while one is sleeping, and having control over the dreamscape, or the full reality dream world within a dream. Source of that partial definition, wordiq.com. And now back to my interview with Robert Waggoner, the author of the book Lucid Dreaming. Robert Waggoner, you're past president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. Did you know there was a Study for Dreams Association? You're a summa cum laude graduate of Drake University in Iowa.
Right.
You have a degree in psychology from Drake.
Yeah.
For the past 10 years, you've been the co-editor of a quarterly journal known as the Lucid Dream Exchange.
Right.
And you've recently launched this remarkable book. This is from a website, The Word Remarkable, but I would agree with it. Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. So, is there anything that our viewers might want to know a little bit more about your background and your connection with this vanguard research into lucid dreaming before we get into what lucid dreaming really can mean for someone?
Right. So in the world of lucid dreaming, I taught myself how to lucid dream in 1975 when I was a junior in high school. I was reading a book by Carlos Castaneda called Journey to Ixtlan, where his shaman suggested that he become aware in his dreams by finding his hands. And so as a very dedicated explorer of dreaming, within a few nights I found my hands in a dream and realized I was dreaming. So that's how I began.
Finding your hands in a dream, you mean seeing them in the dream's context?
Right. So what I did specifically was this. Each night before I'd go to sleep, I'd simply look at my hands while telling myself, tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And so I just kept repeating that over and over as a suggestion. I'd do it for 4 or 5 minutes, get sleepy, go to sleep, and see if I'd seen my hands in my dreams. After 3 nights of doing this, all of a sudden I was walking through my high school in a dream when suddenly, like they were spring-loaded, boom, my hands were just right in front of my face, and I thought, oh, my hands, this is a dream. And it was truly extraordinary to realize at that moment that what I had thought or accepted as reality, I now realized was a dream. So I was aware within the dream that I was dreaming.
Very interesting. So would you say that was a sort of a self-hypnosis?
You know, in many regards, it's like Ivan Pavlov, the Russian physiologist, who would ring a bell when he would feed dogs, and after a while he could just ring the bell and they would naturally salivate because they had created a conditioned response. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that later I learned in psychology, that you could condition seeing my hands with the idea this is a dream. And so when I saw him in the dream, the first thought that came to me was, oh, I'm dreaming. I know this is a dream.
So, from that base of experience, what led you further on?
Right. So, at the time, I found it very interesting, and I tried to convince my friends I'm becoming aware in the dream state. And they told me, oh, no, you can't become conscious in the unconscious. And I said, I am, and here's a technique to do it. So, it went on for a while, and I quit talking about it after a while because the disbelief was so profound. But then in 1980 or 81, I was reading Psychology Today, and a doctoral student, STEVEN STEINBERG, had scientifically proved the existence of lucid dreaming. And here's how he did it. In a sleep lab, he realized that your eyes are still moving when you're dreaming. So he decided that a person could signal through eye movements that they were consciously aware within the dream. And that's what he did. He brought himself into the sleep lab. He put the rapid eye movement pads on his eyes to record the rapid eye movement. And he made a predetermined signal that he'd look left to right 8 times, and he would signal that he was consciously aware in the dream. And they also had other physiological measures that would show he was still dreaming while this all occurred.
Because wouldn't one of the questions by a researcher be, well, maybe he's not dreaming, he's just consciously
maybe he's woken up for 30 seconds and he's just signaling. So by having these other measures, they could still show that physiologically he was asleep. And this experiment has been replicated by many others, and it's commonly accepted by scientists and psychology that a person can be consciously aware in the dream state. But that didn't come out until 1981, and so I began in 1975 and just was a lonely explorer for 5 or 6 years. And then I read this article, and I was completely shocked and thankful that someone had finally validated what many people nowadays know as lucid dreaming.
And so then your next step into formal research, what was that?
Right. So what happened, like many people, I was just investigating it on my own. But then in the 1980s, a woman started a mutual dream project, or a lucid dreaming project, in which she gave all the people who were involved a monthly experiment to conduct in their lucid dreams. And I found this very interesting because it made me very disciplined. I'd become consciously aware in the dream state, and I'd think, oh, what's our experimental goal for this month? And I would conduct the experiment, I'd get the results I needed, and then I'd wake up and write it all down and send it off to this group. The most fascinating thing, though, occurred, I believe, in 1986, when the goal was find out what your dream figures represent in the dream.
The characters in the dream, or the objects, whatever they might be.
Right. So I was dreaming, and I saw a woman go into an office, and suddenly I realized, wait a second, this is a dream. So I followed her into the office, and there was the woman, a receptionist, a nicely dressed woman, and a man in a 3-piece suit with a gold watch in his pocket. And so, lucid, I went up to the man, and I said, excuse me, what do you represent? And here's what happened that shocked me. All of a sudden, a voice from above him responds. And it said it was the acquired characteristics, that he was the acquired characteristics.
Of what?
And that's exactly how I responded. I was a little bit surprised because first a voice had boomed above him, and it just said the acquired characteristics. And so I said, the acquired characteristics of what? And all of a sudden it boomed back to me, the acquired characteristics of the happy giver. And so I thought, okay, that's what this dream figure represents, the acquired characteristics of the happy giver. And so I woke up and I wrote down my lucid dream, and the next day I realized that the day before, in waking reality, I had interacted with a woman who worked at a nonprofit who told me the only reason people gave to her nonprofit was to get their name in the annual report. And she seemed so unhappy that when I walked away from her, I thought in my head, the Lord loves a happy giver, because she was such an unhappy receiver. And so basically the most emotionally significant event of the day before appeared in that dream, and that gentleman who looked very avuncular with his gold watch and very wealthy, he was the happy giver. So he was the representation of that.
Explore new worlds. Read. Visit literacy.gov and let the journey begin.
This is Steve Steinberg speaking. If you have comments, suggestions, or would like to advertise on Dazzle Unlimited, contact us at dazzle@dazzleunlimited.com. The Dazzle Unlimited series airs Wednesday evenings, 8:30 p.m. on Time Warner Cable of New York City, Channel 35, Southern Manhattan. And now, please stay tuned. There's more to come on tonight's Dazzle Unlimited.
So, as I went deeper into lucid dreaming, I realized that it showed dreaming in a new form. Most of us think of dreaming as chaos or just random events and nonsensical fantasy, imaginary. But as I got deeper into lucid dreaming, I realized that there were principles, and that all lucid dreamers most lucid dreamers seemed to be agreeing on the same principles. So like here would be one example of a principle. If you become consciously aware in the dream and get too excited, if you get too excited, the dream will end immediately.
You wake up.
Right, you'll wake up and you'll be out of the lucid dream. So that was something that everyone's learned, that you can't get too excited. And so when I teach people about lucid dreaming, I always tell them, when you become consciously aware in the dream, don't get too excited. If you feel you're getting excited, look at the ground, look at your hands, something boring, tell yourself to calm down, and then you'll have a longer lasting dream. Another example of a common lucid dream principle is you can't stare at something for too long. So if I stared at my book in a lucid dream for more than 3 or 4 seconds, the dream would collapse. So there's something about fixating on an object in the dream, and I don't know if it's your eyes like to move in a dream, but in the lucid dream, if I fixate on something, the dream collapses. And lucid dreamers have discovered that in their own explorations all around the world, and commonly report that same phenomenon. So getting into lucid dreaming was deeper and deeper understanding of exactly how this dream environment works when you're consciously aware in it.
And then your next step was how did you come to do formal studies in the field and become the president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams? Which, by the way, what is that?
Right. So the International Association for the Study of Dreams is a wonderful organization. They publish a scientific refereed journal called Dreaming, and also a magazine called Dreamtime. Its membership is open, so we have about 650 members currently. About a third of them are researchers and academic faculty members. About a third are psychotherapists who use dreams and lucid dreaming in their psychotherapy. And then about a third are people like myself who are just deeply interested in understanding dreams or lucid dreams. So it's a very eclectic organization that explores all sorts of topics, and we have an annual conference each year, and you can read more about it at asdreams.org.
asdreams.org.
Yeah, Association Study, asdreams.org, and read more about our international conference as well as regional conferences that we have.
Next step
Right.
in your own development?
Right. So as I kept going deeper into lucid dreaming, and at the beginning I would say I had 2 to 4 lucid dreams a month, and then as I got deeper into it in college, I was having 6 to 8 lucid dreams a month. And then I learned some new techniques, and I got up to having 30 lucid dreams a month, so almost one a night on average. And I found the topic just very, very interesting. And so, like the example that I mentioned before of asking a dream figure, what do you represent, and a voice booming out from above, all of a sudden that gave me an idea that maybe there's an awareness behind the dream. That maybe there's more than just the dream figures and the dream objects and the setting and environment. Maybe there's actually more out there. And so I began to do my own set of experiments, and I read the work of Steven Steinberg, a lovely book called Lucid Dreaming, in which he suggested that people surrender to the lucid dream, or announce to the dream, I now seek my highest, and then see what would happen. And so I started doing those kind of experiments and realized at a very deep level that by all appearances there was an awareness behind the dream, and actually it was the most creative component, the most creative awareness within the dream state.
Minutes a day of physical activity can improve your health and decrease your risk of heart disease. So start walking for yourself. Start walking with your family. Start walking with your friends. Start a movement in your community. Start walking. Start something. To join the movement, log on to heart.org/start and help start something now.
Using energy wisely can be magical. Turn off lights. Use energy-saving light bulbs. And turn off computers and game systems when not in use. Grab a grown-up and go online to energy.gov/kids.
What is the difference between lucid dreaming and just dreaming?
Right, that's an excellent question. So the American Psychological Association says that a lucid dream is a dream in which the sleeper is aware that he or she is dreaming and may be able to influence the progress of the dream narrative. So that's what the official American Psychological Association definition of lucid dreaming is. In more informal terms, lucid dreamers say a lucid dream is one in which you realize in the dream state that you're dreaming.
Okay.
So the interesting contrast to normal dreams is in normal dreams, if we see Godzilla coming to the Empire State Building, we just react. We run in fear, we go get our family, we try to escape, here comes Godzilla, we make an irrational story, and we basically lack any critical awareness. But if you became lucid at that moment and thought, wait a second, Godzilla doesn't exist, he's a creation of TV fiction writers. So if at that moment I became lucidly aware, then I could decide to do basically whatever I wanted to do. I could go up to Godzilla and say, Godzilla, what do you represent? Or I could go flying away, or I could conduct an experiment, or most anything that I wanted to do. So that's the critical difference. In a lucid dream, you're aware, you consciously decide, and you begin to influence your experience of the dream from that point on.
So then, what is the value of, well, can a person intentionally say, I am going to have a lucid dream instead of, I'm just going to dream and hope I'll have some control?
Right. So exactly, a person before they go to sleep can suggest to themselves, tonight in my dreams I'll be more critically aware, and when I see something unusual, I'll realize I'm dreaming. Or another suggestion might be, tonight in my dreams there'll be a part of me that stays aware, and when I'm dreaming, it'll help me become and realize that fact that I'm dreaming. So you can make those suggestions before you go to sleep, and hopefully, with any fortune, you'll become consciously aware and realize in the dream that you're dreaming.
Is there a recommended technique for doing that? In other words, should a person spend 10 minutes sitting on the edge of the bed before hopping into bed and going to sleep, or not eat a big dinner before going to bed? What does one actually do?
Right. So there's various techniques that a person can use. One thing that I always recommend is Sigmund Freud said that dreams often showed us day residue. And so this is what I do when I want to have a lucid dream. I'll imagine the entire day is drawn out on a chalkboard from morning to evening. And then I'll go up to the chalkboard in my mind and erase the entire day. So I'm getting rid of all the day residue. And then I'll start to make the suggestion, tonight in my dreams I'll be more critically aware and realize I'm dreaming. Or I'll suggest that for 4 or 5 minutes until I feel it's a very firm intent, and then I'll go to sleep. Or I'll do something like look at my hands while thinking, tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. But again, to do something like this and any conditioned response, you have to do it night after night after night after night, and then the response becomes conditioned. So those are just some of the techniques that lucid dreamers use in order to achieve awareness in the dream.
But I'm sure you talk about more of those and in more detail in your book, Lucid Dreaming.
Right, exactly. I give, in this book are probably maybe 150 examples of lucid dreams, and in the appendix is a whole series of questions and answers about how to become lucid, how to stay lucid once you become consciously aware in the dream.
Now, in yesterday evening, I attended your lecture here in Stockholm, and it was fascinating. What was in Swedish, the Sällskap för Parapsykologi? Well, the Association of Parapsychology, basically. They organized your presentation. And among the things that you touched on in the context of lucid dreaming were the suggestions of the possibility of jumping through different time dimensions, not necessarily physically, but within the dream somehow, and getting information that seems to come from the future or from somewhere else, wherever it is. Right. And you also talked to, I forget the title you gave it, dual dreaming, where two people can...
Mutual lucid dreaming is what they call it. Yeah.
So where both people can be dreaming, they could be thousands of miles away, but if circumstances are right, they can insert themselves or some thoughts into the other person's actual dream, just like in the movies. So can you talk about some of these possibilities?
Right. So a person has to realize that to go deeper into lucid dreaming is actually a very deep and persistent practice. That normally something like this you won't experience very quickly in your lucid dreaming. You have to go through stages of development to become a better lucid dreamer. But one of the things I realized in a lucid dream is that you could use intent. So here's an example. I become consciously aware in the dream, and I see a garage, and in the lucid dream I announce, when I go into that garage, I'll see a red Ferrari. And so when I open up the door to the garage, 9 times out of 10, there's a brand new red Ferrari. I can hop in the seat, and I'm amazed at what my mind has created. Okay. But what I realized after that was, well, what if I ask the dream an open-ended question? So once I encouraged my niece to do this because she told me lucid dreams have no meaning. And I said, oh, you want to discover if they have meaning? Do this. So I told her, when you become consciously aware in the dream, just shout out to the dream, hey, dream, show me something important for me to see. So she is having a lucid dream, or she's having a dream, she's being chased by a lion, she hides behind a rock, the lion jumps at her, and she realizes, wait a second, there's no lions running loose in Kansas City. This must be a dream. And at that moment, she remembers my suggestion, and she yells out to the dream, hey, dream, show me something important for me to see. At that moment, a blue hallway appears, and at the end of it's a white-haired lady. She walks down to it, and she realizes it's her great-grandmother who passed away when she was very young, who's basically been deceased for almost 15 years. And so this surprises her quite a bit, and they begin to have a conversation. And at the end of the conversation, the great-grandmother tells Jane, she goes, look, Jane, tell your mom to remember the back room in my house. And Jane goes, what? And the great-grandmother again says, just tell your mom to remember the back room in my house. And so Jane says okay and wakes up, and she gives me a call. She says, Uncle Robert, I asked the dream, show me something important for me to see, and all of a sudden my great-grandmother appears, and she tells me this statement to tell my mother. And so I respond to Jane, I said, look, you're the one who was wondering if lucid dreams have meaning, so you have to call up your mom and find out, does this have any meaning? She calls up her mom. Her mom burst into tears when she hears this. And her mom says that when she was a little girl in the back room of grandmother's house, all the children, the grandchildren, could come and dress up and play and pretend to be kings and queens and princesses. And she said those were the happiest moments of her life occurred in the back room of great-grandmother's house. So for my niece, this was very incredible that she could meet a woman who had passed away when she was very young, who had basically...
Like 1 or 2 or 3?
Probably around 4 or 5, but had spent the last few years of her life in a nursing home, and my niece didn't have any contact very much with her. But she could find out basically unknown information in the lucid dream when she requested an open-ended question, show me something important for me to see.
So what is your thought as to where that information came from to her?
Right, so as you think about it, you start to think about various concepts like Carl Jung suggested there might be a collective unconscious. Now, he basically defined the collective unconscious as kind of biologically ingrained information that all of us possess by just virtue of our humanity. But it might be that the collective unconscious might be a little bit more beyond that, and maybe in a larger sense indicative of a universal mind, a matrix, a metaweb, interconnected knowing. There's the researcher Dean Radin. He's written a book called Entangled Minds, because oftentimes he'll notice that there's been many studies on telepathy, clairvoyance, psychic phenomenon, which seems to suggest that minds are interconnected at some other level. Mm-hmm. And when we're aware at the level of the subconscious, when we're aware at the level of dreaming, maybe we're able to actually engage that larger awareness and get information that later we can validate and verify as valid.
So much more to the subject, but we're running out of time very quickly.
Okay.
So Robert Waggoner, thank you very much for being with us in tonight's Dazzle Unlimited. It's fascinating. It's something to dream about.
Okay, Stephen, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My special guest, Robert Waggoner, the author of Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. I'm Steve Steinberg. See you next week on another special episode of Dazzle Unlimited. Good night from Stockholm, Sweden. This time. See you.
This is Steve Steinberg speaking. Look for part 2 of my interview with Robert Waggoner, the author of Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, in a future episode of Dazzle Unlimited.